Well, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has travelled to San Diego in the United States ahead of Tuesday's major AUKUS announcement. He'll be joining US President Joe Biden and UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. We're expected to learn how and when Australia will acquire nuclear submarines under the security deal, and I've revealed this morning it will be a commitment in excess of $150 billion over 30 years. Sky News Washington correspondent Annelise Nielsen is on the ground in San Diego. A couple of big days for you, Annelise, and for us. What are we expecting to find out this week?
And for Kieran Gilbert as well, who's on the plane with the Prime Minister, we're expecting to find out all those details about how this is actually going to happen. But one of the critical factors we're all waiting for is how this capability gap is going to be managed. In any estimate of whether we're taking on nuclear submarines from the US or whether we're waiting for these new designs to be announced, there is going to be a gap until we have extra submarines online. And so what we're expecting the US to say is there's going to be increased rotations, there's going to be perhaps more activity in the Indo-Pacific as we wait for these submarines to come online. But it's hard to really emphasise enough just how extraordinary a moment this is in Australia's defence history. This is going to change our outlook for a generation to come, and that hasn't come without some consequences, especially from China. We've seen an increase in rhetoric from the Chinese government singling out the US this week as escalating tensions in the region. They are taking note of the fact that we are teaming up with the United Kingdom and the United States. Former Prime Minister Paul Keating has criticised AUKUS from the very beginning, saying that we're ceding sovereignty to the United States. He's described it as throwing toothpicks at the mountain when it comes to dealing with China. I asked former ambassador, or outgoing ambassador, I should say, Arthur Sinodinos, who's swapping over in these few weeks with the incoming ambassador Kevin Rudd, about what this is going to mean for Australia going forward, whether we should be heeding the warning from Paul Keating, and he said that this has all been taken into consideration during these 18 months of negotiations.
I believe that we've been pragmatic in what we do, and one of the things that's been important for us is to have a strong alliance with the US, which is essentially the main guarantor of the global rules-based order. And as I said before, we pull our weight in that regard. Australia has always been prepared to stand up on these issues. Just as over the last few years when there have been issues of foreign interference, we've been prepared to take action in our national interest, even if it's been potentially at an economic cost to us. Look, I respect Paul Keating's point of view. No one wants to get into a situation where there's conflict, but we have to deal with the world as it is. And in being pragmatic in that regard, we regard the alliance as an important way in which we make a contribution towards making the Indo-Pacific as safe, prosperous and peaceful as possible.
Andrew, there's been a number of reports this week on leaks from those involved in the negotiations saying that Australia has agreed to buy 5 Virginia-class submarines. And so those are US nuclear submarines that will come online in the 2030s. In the meantime, a new kind of submarine will be designed using US technology, construction from the United Kingdom and Australia, and that will be more likely to come online in the 2040s. We won't find out any of that until we get this announcement on Tuesday and confirmation from each of the governments involved. But we spoke to Joe Courtney, representative from Connecticut, where one of the 2 bases where they construct submarines in the United States are. He's the co-chair of the AUKUS working group in the US Congress, and so has been in all the negotiations from very early days. He was saying that there is very much a sentiment of, while they might be changing how things are done, it is going to get done.
We do have a regime of laws that really restrict exports of technology that we're going to have to figure out in terms of really making this as smooth and executable as possible. Look at all 3 principals know that, and again, I think Congress is going to have a role to play in terms of facilitating that. I think the Australian Embassy had an excellent statement just last week about the fact that Australia is going to bolster its own sort of controls of information so that we know there's no backdoors that are going to be created by having that information flow into Australia. So there's a lot of moving parts here. Again, I think we've got some really smart people that said, have been sort of trying to really identify those and really come up with solutions, which, you know, I think it's so important for us to execute this that, you know, we're going to figure out a way to get it done.
Annelise, as you say, some of it's leaked out, but so many unanswered questions here. How much will Australia give to US shipyards, for example? Will there be an American skipper on these boats initially? What will it mean for our sovereignty for the US subs to be going through Australia to start with? And will the East Coast submarine base that Scott Morrison announced during the election campaign still go ahead? My understanding is it might not.
Look, those are all really important questions we're expecting to find more details on. There has been mention, especially in my interview with Joe Courtney, of the East Coast base submarines, and they've said that that is absolutely going ahead, that there's going to be increased rotations with US submarines in the meantime. But one of the other questions we're going to see is about this joint crewing. Now, this is a really important detail when you're talking about navies working together. To have Australians be allowed to go in and learn about the nuclear technology was already a big concession from the United States, because that will involve our seamen on their submarines. One of the issues is going to be in getting these submarines up and running, and especially having the US Virginia-class submarines. They're going to have Americans on board. And that's where the criticism from Paul Keating came in, saying, well, are we just merging with the US Navy in this? The distinct answer has been no. These are going to be our ships. These are going to be our submarines that the US is helping us going to maintain until we can get these new designs online. But this is no simple task. There's been 18 months of negotiations. There's been groups of Australian naval negotiators coming to DC, having these top secret discussions, and there is no simple answer here. And it seems like there's going to be a lot more that's answered as they try to face these challenges in the years, decades ahead.
Thanks, Annelise.